what is PPE? We always talk about it, professional protective equipment. I can't even pronounce it, but we hear it on the news. We hear it daily. Sometime for a while it was the lack of PPE across health services. But so what exactly does it entail when we hear that on the news that they're talking about showing up with PPE?
Yeah. Again, who would have thought a year ago that we would, as just citizens, understand that acronym like PPE, but it's personal protective equipment. So we know that this disease is spread through droplets. So we have to make sure that those droplets don't enter our body. It's like any type of virus, influenza. They enter through your respiratory system. It can be through your mucous membranes, it can be your eyes. So we have to make sure that we have a barrier in place to make sure that virus doesn't enter or we don't give that virus to somebody else. So personal protective equipment needs face masks. It could be goggles. It can be a face shield, gloves, a gown that protects the clothing. And that's been a really difficult thing from the onset, is to be able to keep adequate stocks for personal protective equipment for the paramedics and for healthcare providers.
So when somebody calls 911 and they ask those questions and say there's a high risk, contact that they're attending a call at that door, what changes in the way the paramedic comes to the door? I know you're saying that they're all wearing the gear, obviously to protect themselves and the resident, but if they know they're going into a high risk, somebody's traveled or somebody's tested positive and they still need help, we're still going to help them, obviously. So what would be the protocol that would be done differently?
Right. Again, it starts with the dispatchers. When the call is made, the dispatcher should be telling the person, don't approach the paramedics until they allow you to. Right. So normally we would run out, we want to go to the paramedics and try to help them bring their equipment in. We can't do that. We have to keep separated until we make sure that it's safe. The medics will have their protective equipment ready to put it on very, very quickly, so it doesn't really delay any response. But they'll try to keep that distance. They'll get their equipment on. Often one paramedic will go in first while the other is setting up equipment. So it's changed those things quite slightly, really. In the end, though, we're responding just as quickly as we did before. We're bringing the same life-saving equipment and procedures.
So how are paramedics? It sounds stressful. And I can imagine the paramedic's job has always been fairly stressful, and obviously as a frontline worker. So how are they handling the stress? How are they, not knowing, there's a lot of unknown out there. There's a lot of scared people out there, but going into these calls all the time and really sometimes not knowing what they're going into. How are they handling that on a personal level?
Yeah, it's an incredibly stressful time. I mean, paramedics, all public safety personnel, obviously suffer from a lot of mental health injuries, stress injuries. This has been particularly challenging. It's been amazing to watch paramedics stand up and actually face it the way they have. But we've been trying to make sure that we're ahead of that through open lines of communication, keeping paramedics informed, things like knowing how much personal protective equipment we have, keeping those all of that information available to the paramedics has helped. Of course, we have a great CISM team, that critical incident stress management team here in Peterborough, or in Kawarthas, that we have provided for the staff, so they're making use of that as well. But it really amazes me how they've stood up, and in one of the most challenging times I've seen in my 34 years in the paramedic world, it amazes me how the Kawartha paramedics are standing up against those stresses.
Well, thank you for that. We certainly appreciate what it is they do each and every day, and we don't want to take them for granted. So we're having a conversation with Chief Randy Mellow, and we'll be back in a minute to continue.